Most men believe foolishness looks like obvious failure, bad decisions made loudly, visible collapse, the kind of mistakes you can point to from a distance. They are wrong. The most destructive foolishness is invisible. It runs quietly beneath the surface of a life that looks functional from the outside. It operates in the patterns you've repeated so long, they feel like personality. In the habits you've never examined because examining them would require something uncomfortable. The Stoics were not interested in obvious failure. They were interested in the subtle errors of mind that prevent a man from living with genuine clarity and purpose. Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus. These were not theorists. They governed empires, survived exile, lived in chains, and they identified 6 specific patterns that keep a man trapped below his own potential, regardless of his circumstances. Today we go through all 6, not as judgment, as the kind of honest mirror that most men spend their entire lives avoiding. Sign 1. Building your identity on what can be seen rather than what actually holds. You have encountered this man. Everything about his exterior is carefully maintained. The presentation is considered, the image is managed, the surface is polished to a high shine, and beneath it there is very little. The Stoics identified this pattern as one of the clearest signs of an undeveloped mind, not because appearance is irrelevant, but because anchoring your worth to something temporary is structurally guaranteed to fail. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. What you cultivate internally is what you actually are. What you present externally is what you want others to believe you are. Most men have invested far more in the second than the first. The problem is mechanical. Physical presentation fades. Status shifts. External circumstances change. A man whose identity is built on those things is perpetually one bad season away from complete disorientation. The man whose identity is built on character has something that no external event can reach, because it is located somewhere external events do not have access to. Ask yourself honestly, if everything visible about you were removed, what would remain? That answer tells you exactly how much actual building you have done. Sign 2. Refusing to own the outcomes of your own choices. There is a pattern so common, it has become invisible. The problem is always located somewhere outside the man experiencing it. The circumstances, the other people, the timing, the system, never the choices that produced the circumstances. Epictetus was born into slavery. He had less control over his external conditions than almost any man in recorded history. And he became the most clear-eyed philosopher of personal responsibility that Western thought has produced. His position was simple. We cannot choose our external circumstances. We can always choose how we respond to them. The man who refuses that responsibility experiences a specific kind of relief. Blame is easy. It requires nothing. It protects you from the discomfort of examining your own decisions, but it extracts an enormous price. Every time you locate the cause of your situation outside yourself, you also locate the solution outside yourself. And a solution that exists outside you is a solution you cannot access. The man who takes full ownership, even of situations that were genuinely unfair, reclaims the only thing that matters, his ability to act, his capacity to change what is directly in front of him. That is not a comfortable position. It is the only position from which genuine progress is possible. Sign 3. Living for the assessment of people who barely know you. This pattern is so normalized in modern life that questioning it feels radical. You alter your behavior based on how it will be received. You postpone decisions while you calculate other people's likely responses. You carry the weight of opinions from people whose own lives do not reflect the judgment they are offering you. Marcus Aurelius wrote something worth reading twice. It never ceases to amaze me that we all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own. You are with yourself every moment. You know the full context of every decision you have made. You understand your intentions, your constraints, your history. The stranger, offering their assessment, knows none of that. Yet his opinion carries more weight in your daily choices than your own honest evaluation. The Stoic correction is not to become indifferent to all feedback. Epictetus was clear that useful criticism from someone whose judgment has been earned is genuinely valuable. The problem is not feedback. The problem is the indiscriminate need for approval from anyone who happens to be watching. The next time you feel the pull of that need, ask one question. If no one would ever know, would this still be the right choice? Your answer to that question is your actual standard. Everything else is performance. Before we continue, this is where most people quit. If you're still here, you're different. Subscribe to this channel, not for motivation, but for mental tools you can actually use. In a world of noise, we offer direction. In a world of distraction, we build discipline. Hit that subscribe button now. Let's continue. Sign 4. Allowing your emotional state to be determined by whatever arrives. A minor inconvenience produces disproportionate anger. A small slight expands into a day-altering grievance. The emotional response bears no relationship to the actual scale of what happened. The Stoics were precise about this. Foolishness is not in feeling. Feeling is human and inevitable. Foolishness is in being governed by what you feel without any space for evaluation between the emotion and the response. Seneca wrote that a man is as unhappy as he has convinced himself he is. Much of what we experience as suffering is not produced by the situation itself. It is produced by the story we construct around it in the first instant of reaction. Between what happens and how you respond, there is a space. In that space lives everything the Stoics were pointing toward. The capacity to observe an emotion without immediately enacting it. To evaluate a response before delivering it. To ask whether what you are about to say or do reflects the man you are actually trying to become. That space is not a luxury. It is the specific location where character is either built or abandoned. In every interaction, in every small provocation, in every moment where the automatic reaction is available and the chosen response requires effort, the forge operates there, not in the dramatic moments, in the invisible daily ones. Sign 5. Chasing what cannot fill the space you're trying to fill. The external accumulation without end. More possessions, more status, more visible markers of a life that is working, and the quiet, persistent dissatisfaction that does not respond to any of it. Epictetus wrote that wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. The man trapped in this pattern is not failing to acquire enough. He is trying to resolve an internal deficit with external additions, and that is structurally impossible. An interior void cannot be filled from the outside. It can only be quieted temporarily. And the temporary quieting requires increasing amounts of external input to produce the same reduction in discomfort. That is not a path. That is a treadmill. The Stoic alternative is not asceticism for its own sake. It is the practical recognition that the only genuine satisfaction comes from alignment between your values and your daily conduct, not from the accumulation of things that exist outside that alignment. Gratitude is part of this, not as a performance of positivity, as the honest recognition of what is already present and genuinely valuable. Your capacity to think, to act, to improve. The relationships that have survived scrutiny. The morning itself. These do not cost anything, and they cannot be taken from you the way possessions can. Sign 6. Avoiding the honest examination of your own interior. This is the most dangerous of all 6, because it prevents the correction of every other one. The man who will not look at himself honestly cannot improve. He can only repeat the same patterns, the same outcomes, the same vague sense that something is wrong without ever locating what it is. Marcus Aurelius, governing an empire at the height of Roman power, spent time, every evening examining his own conduct, not to punish himself, to see clearly, to identify where he had acted from principle and where he had not, to ask what tomorrow required from him that today had not provided. That practice is the foundation of everything the Stoics built. Without it, knowledge is just information, principles are just words. Genuine development is impossible without the consistent willingness to face honestly what the examination reveals. Start small, 5 minutes at the end of each day. Where did you act from your actual values today? Where did you not? What does tomorrow require? Do not be afraid of what you find. The man who avoids the mirror does not avoid what the mirror would show. He simply carries it unseen, acting from it without knowing it. That is the most expensive form of ignorance available to you. 6 signs: identity built on appearance, responsibility refused, approval from the wrong sources, emotional reaction without space, external accumulation without resolution, self-examination avoided. Every one of these is correctable. None of them require dramatic gestures or complete life restructuring. They require the daily, unglamorous, unwitnessed practice of choosing differently in the small moments that do not announce their importance. Which of these 6 is the one you have been most consistently avoiding? Name it in the comments. That naming is the beginning of something real.